So, grid down scenario, a disaster timeline. So yes, here we go then. This is what we've got for you this week. This is a very important one because we're looking at essentially what we could have coming up very soon in regard to power outages and things happening that are going to cause us some pretty significant problems. And it's important that we get an idea of what to expect as the worst case scenario, right? So why do we need to prepare? I think we all know why. Self-reliance at an all-time low. You know, we're super susceptible, particularly to a grid down because of reliance on technology. And if you joined in with the episode 1, we went through this in detail. And as you can see, it's that sort of learned dependency that's made us just rely on the system so much that when that system collapses, there's just not really much left. So these are the sorts of plausible SHTF scenarios that face us right now. So the situation report then, as it said, this is a grid down scenario talking about power outages and the like. So we're following hypothetical SHTF scenarios based on real events that have happened frequently throughout history. So this is going to be more epic though, because of course we're so reliant on tech right now. So we're going to be looking at a complete grid down scenario, which will lead to inoperable sewage systems, inoperable water systems, complete cell and internet outage, major transport disruptions, and all trade and commerce cease. But we're going to actually be looking at this step by step through this series today, because we looked at this last week, yeah? How to prepare, basically, the preparing principles. Whereas this week's what I'm doing is I'm going to be going through these things we looked at last week for this scenario and see how it plays out in order, right? So that's the idea. So the mission then is what we're going to be doing is going to analyze the order of events and subsequent system failures resulting from a complete and sustained grid down scenario. Consider the effect of each failure point and how it would look in your location and environment, because everyone's in a different situation. Discover your potential vulnerabilities and key oversights while acting as a template to refine your blackout preparations, right? So as we go through, there'll be things that you perhaps haven't considered. There'll be things that we can sort of analyze further and get an idea of how these could affect us in our neighborhoods, in our areas, in our towns. So yeah, the objective is to gain a better understanding of the number and seriousness of threats associated with a complete grid down scenario. I think there's a lot of things that happen that people kind of overlook. It's worse than you think. It's always worse than you think. So, the objective is to help to guide your blackout preparations more effectively based on newly discovered threats. Ensure we are getting the most survival juice out of our prepping squeeze. Yes, indeed. So that's the objectives. We'll see how we go. So the unique considerations is essentially the fact that everybody out there has a different situation, right? Your climate and environment, if you're living in a desert, you're going to have different problems if you're living in the Arctic Circle. And equally, your different laws and regulations are going to mean you have access to different tools and things legally than other things. And of course, your local culture and crime levels is going to have a massive impact. And as we're going to see today in the grid down scenario, when you have a major power outage that is sustained, things start falling apart quite quickly and crime levels go up exponentially, just through the roof. And we'll see how that plays out. And of course, if you're in a rural off-grid cabin, you're going to have a very different experience than if you're in a city apartment. So bear all this in mind, because, and if you've got a massive property versus small property, your family size and so on. So everyone's going to be in a different situation. But what I've put together today with the critical alert, nationwide grid down scenario begins at 8:42 a.m. So we are in deep SHTF scenario mode right now. Right, so here we go then. The idea is this scenario is going down at 8:42 a.m. Now, the reason I'm saying 8:42 a.m. is because I want people to put themselves in a situation to consider the possibility of where you would be at 8:42 a.m. Because I want you to consider the possibility that you may not even be at home. Yeah? Your children may already be at school if you have children. Yeah? You could be fast asleep because you work nights and you don't usually get up till 2 p.m. in the afternoon. That could cause you a problem as well. Do you see? So we're going to base this at 8:42 a.m. The lights go out. Boom, that's it. Right? Now, there's a bunch of reasons why this could happen. Yeah? So What I think we'll look at today, you know, there's a bunch of things that can, you know, cause a problem. Like UK has got the plan here for the winter blackouts with energy rationing campaign. They're doing this everywhere. There's places like Switzerland that are threatening 3 years in jail if you put your temperature above a certain 18, 19 degrees centigrade, and you get basically thrown in jail as a way of limiting power usage because of rationing. So as this starts to continue, plus we've got the space weather. We had an X-class solar flare just 48 hours ago, and an X-class solar flare is capable of causing us some pretty big-ish. And pretty big-ish, particularly with, this one here is the beta gamma delta magnetic class, right? You got a 20% chance of another X-class solar flare, right? And this sunspot here is growing, yeah? It's this one here. So all these things are very possible, and it's happened before. Yeah, the solar storm of 1859, the Carrington event. Yeah, powerful geomagnetic storm in 1859 during solar cycle 10, right? So this CME, coronal mass ejection, essentially hit Earth's magnetosphere, disrupted it, and shorted out all the transmission lines that we had back then, right? And took it all down. If that happened now, it would take out all our satellites. And check out what it says that. This is why I'm using the Wayback Machine, because they changed it. And I'm not surprised, because it says here, studies have shown that a solar storm of this magnitude occurring today would likely cause widespread problems for modern civilization. It would put us back to the Bronze Age. That's more than widespread problems. It would put us back to the Bronze Age, pretty literally, right? There is an estimated 12% chance of a similar event occurring between 2012 and 2022. We are in a heightened period. We're in even more of a heightened period when you check out the solar data here, and you check out the number of sunspots, and you see how much they're ramping out beyond what's normal. Yeah, like this last month's figures have just got in September. We'll be looking at this in more detail tomorrow night on the Sigma Prepper live show. We'll have the SHTF Intel live report that I do at the beginning of that, and I'll be breaking into what's going on with the sun a bit more. But you can see here, look, September's numbers are in. Now we're in October. Monthly values 96, predicted values of 51, so we're nearly doubling the number of sunspots all the time. So things are ramping up, right? So this, you know, having another solar storm Carrington event is definitely easily more than possible, and a 12% chance is quite significant. And since it hasn't happened, there's a chance that we are overdue. So let's assume this is the case then. You don't know where you're going to be, right? Where are you? Who are you with? What do you do, right?